Anywho, this next fellow is my partner. It's like Sundance, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. He and I, and we love to wrestle with each other with our ideas, and that's the beauty of this friendship. That you don't have to agree. You just have to agree to converse. And we're never bored. We just shake each other's tree. And then I razz him because Mama was from Russell, Alabama, and I know that he's from all over, from Tennessee and from Arkansas. Why it's not called Arkansas, that's another discussion. Arkansas, if you want to bust their chops. But this Southern boy happens to be a master of art painting. He had a show here. His stuff is fabulous. And it's very interesting with Rafi tonight was doing some very strong images. And Clayton does that with his storytelling. The imagery is so strong and it's stripped down. There's no posturing. He's just telling it. And I'm getting goosebumps now because I'm remembering different stories that he has read through the years that are so bloody powerful. Come on, Clayton, do it again. Clayton Buchanan.
A couple of months ago, over here. Oh, good. A couple of months ago, I started putting together some writings based on some of my past paintings in terms of what was the motivation. Why did I end up doing the painting? What got me there? And I was a featured poet just this last Tuesday at the opening of a new area for the Montgomery Book Exchange. And I had worked out 4 different paintings that I had written about. And this morning I knew I was going to be a reading in the open section tonight here, and I started thinking, well, why don't I just keep that in mind and try to pull something from another painting that I've done in the past that was very strongly a motivation for me to continue and do it. And this piece, and I've got an image that I will show about halfway through. And it's about I'll just read it to you. It's pretty self-explanatory.
You can see if you're framed when you hold up the picture by looking at that.
I will try to do that, yes. It's entitled Newburgh Imagery. Looking for natural human imagery to spur my creativity, I often drove or walked down the streets of Newburgh with my camera, observing my environment for that instant moment of triggered recognition wherever it might be, because you never know. This day happened some years back when, slowly driving down Broadway, I drove by a small open field downtown and noticed several men sitting on a long horizontal bench of some sort placed against an old brick wall. I found out later it supported a ministry outreaching to help the community. I immediately was drawn to 2 men separated from the others, seeming to be in a deep discussion. Being a sunny day, if I got out of my car with my digital camera to click a few photos, I realized there was a strong chance that I would be so noticed that the naturalness of their talking and discussing would either stop or they would pull away and ignore continuing. I decided to park my car facing the seated guys against the wall, realizing that the angle of sun hitting my windshield would reflect the sun, preventing my being seen at all through the window. I stayed inside the car and with my telephoto lens shot numerous photos of the many men on the bench. Two of the men photographed were my main areas of interest at the time. And I'm going to show you what this is. And this piece was actually printed, I was asked to show it to Barry Plaxton, who was the publisher of Canvas Arts and Entertainment magazine on a monthly basis. This was in July of 2016. And you notice the older gentleman three hands, sorry. The older gentleman, seeming somewhat crippled as he sat, leaning slightly forward, was talking intently with the younger, angled gentleman, seeming intently focused to the listening of the older guy. And he seemed to be wide open to learning something from the older, more bent in form, the guy there on the bench. And what caught my attention was this older guy was a bigger guy. He was very, almost virile looking, and yet he was intently reaching over and reaching out to absorb what this other, very withdrawn in a sense, physically, this other gentleman was talking and saying to him. And this went on for quite a while. After I took the photographs, I was there at least a half hour. I took other photos of other gentlemen there. But the one that I did the painting of, after putting things together, I noticed when I got back to my studio and downloaded the digital imagery, I noticed in the background, the dramatic shadowed areas against the brick wall were very, very fascinating in regard to making that composition actually work. And the brick wall itself was an old historic structure, and some of those bricks were replaced. And you can see very subtly the angles of how some of these bricks were installed. They almost lent to a semi-abstract background that I felt added to the history of the community of where we lived, or where they lived at the time. Several other paintings I actually did from those gentlemen that were not only these, but the others that were on the bench itself. And the bench probably was at least 30 or 40 feet long. And these two were practically in the center. So there were gentlemen to the right and to the left. And it's no longer there. Just over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, they totally removed whatever could have been there, and they fenced it in. But the reason I'm spending a little time explaining this, I like the idea of young, strong, motivated individuals still learning from the older members of society that have lived a long, full life. And even though they might be deteriorating physically and mentally, there is still information that we can all learn from them. Thank you very much.